Welcome to Ditch Digger CEO. Chris and I got another spectacular guest on today, and you're gonna hear the story of a person that's been in the industry of serving customers in the facilities world as we have, and has grown from serving customers in landscaping and now paving in the paving world. And we're excited to hear Steve's story and really tune into Steve so we can understand what people do in this world to build something in a way that not everybody's ready to do, right? So hard work and intelligence and surround yourself with good people. That's what we're going to hear about today. So Steve Tjornhom, right? Steve, is that how we pronounce your name?
Yep, correct.
Steve Tjornhom, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO today. Appreciate having you.
I'm glad to be here.
I got a new sign in the back, Steve. Can you see that sign in the back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it looks good.
I've never had that before. That was a Christmas present I had, and I figured out a way to hang it back there.
Start to use it.
This is my first time using it, so this is the maiden run, right?
Right.
But so anyway, thanks for being here, Steve. Really appreciate it. We want to hear all about, as always, all about your story, right? Your story of where you began in business, who are your mentors, growing up, who are your mentors, and then how'd you get in the initial businesses you were in, and what brought you to this industry that I love so much?
Well, it's getting to be a long story. I mean, I'm getting old now, so I started after I went to college, had no idea what I wanted to do. I was looking into sales positions and that type of thing, but I didn't even know if I could sell anything. Probably my first real mentor, obviously, I hope for a lot of people too, was my dad. He worked for 3M. He was in upper management at 3M. And I'm sure I could have probably asked him to help me get a job at 3M, but I thought I was really smart and be independent, and I would go and do my own thing. So therefore I started in the lawn care industry on the sales side of things in the lawn and landscape, and found that I enjoyed that. I liked working outside, but as a salesman, I wasn't really outside all that much. At that time, all the big lawn companies were doing a lot of telemarketing and that type of thing. But I learned from them quite a bit. I worked for Evergreen Lawns, which years later was purchased by TruSeal, but Evergreen Lawns, I had a couple owners that would fly around, and one of them I would have never known was an owner. He was out working on a truck one day and asked me to go get him some beer. And sat and talked with him, and his name was Judd Kramer. He was a great mentor to me over the years of understanding what it took to run a business, what it took to be successful. I was promoted rapidly through their company. I was a vice president when I was 29 years old, mainly because I understood, I think, not only how to train people to be successful, but how to surround myself with good people. As I went through those industries, there was a lot of acquisitions at the time going on in the lawn care industry back in the 90s, companies buying companies. I ended up with TruSeal, which at that time was the largest lawn care company in the world. We were doing about $1 billion. So,
hey, Steve,
yep.
What geographic area were you guys covering? Where was this office base? How many employees?
So I was out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've worked in Minnesota my whole life. My Evergreen Lawns was Kansas, Missouri, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, all through the Midwest, essentially. And my territory as a VP, I covered Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri, Kansas, and Indiana. That was where all my facilities were that I would fly out to and work with and that type of thing. Normally, go.
So based in Minnesota, but like Minneapolis area, where then covered Kansas, Missouri, Wisconsin, Kentucky. Anything in Iowa or Illinois?
Actually, no. I mean, well, we had a facility in Illinois, but it was out of St. Louis. So it was, it was just across the river in St. Louis. And our corporate office at that time was in St. Louis. But they allowed me, I really didn't want to transfer down there, and they allowed me. I mean, all we did was fly on planes pretty much every week anyhow, so it didn't really matter if I flew out of Minneapolis or St. Louis. So
When you were flying on planes, you were selling to like large enterprise businesses that had a bunch of properties, or what were your targets, and how did that look? What did that look like?
at that point, when I was flying like that, I was essentially vice president of sales. And so I spent most of my time going into facilities and working with sales management, teaching them how to run sales teams, how to manage people, training, etc. Lawn care, very similarly to asphalt, is seasonal and long hours. And so your turnover can be high if you don't treat your people well and teach them how to be successful and teach them how to manage their time, etc. So that was primarily what my job was. I had about, I suppose, 3,000 people that reported to me with managers all over, etc. And that's what I did.
So the company was 3,000, or was 3,000 all in sales?
There's 3,000 in sales.
Whoa.
So we had a lot of sales reps. Again, it was a lot more. Each sales department would have at least 15 people, because you did a lot of residential, not just commercial. And in lawn care, residential was extremely profitable. And route density, so when you're going out and doing lawns, your trucks, you wanted to have route density, so your trucks were extremely productive. That's how you make your profitability. So it was critical to have a lot of salespeople. And we would take that down at different times of the year, but in the spring, from January 1 till June, July, you had a lot of people selling for you.
Okay, so when you think about that, what are the revenues? This is still at Evergreen before TruGreen bought it.
Right. And Evergreen was they would have been about 35 to 40 million. And so when your average price per customer is about $40 an application at that time, you're doing a lot of customers to get to the 40 million level.
Cool. So explain that service you guys did. That's the spraying, the lawn service, and what?
Yeah. So basically, you had in lawn care, you have a series of applications that you do for a customer. So you would do 5 to 7 treatments, depending on the part of the country you lived in. Minnesota having less treatments, shorter season than a Missouri or Kansas would, that type of thing. And so then your goal was to sell each homeowner, whatever the case may be, or commercial customer, a series of applications, 5 to 7 applications. And the goal was to sell it correctly. And that was my big thing, is as a sale, when I was running all these salespeople and that type of thing, was having my management teams understand that it isn't about getting the sale, it's about keeping the sale. And at that time, and it probably still is now, but at that time, lawn care was a huge deal. And so you could get the sales, but you have to sell them correctly and explain the benefits and what can and cannot happen, et cetera, so that you keep the customer. And that was really where I learned that and how to make that happen.
Well, how to really clarify expectations to the customer, so they understand
Right.
what they're clearly understand what they're going to get, so you don't have callbacks, you don't have people upset
Right.
about the and so on.
Right. And in lawn care, you're going to have callbacks. So, there's weeds and things like that. So it's just explaining the process to customers.
So that's such an important thing when you think about that, Steve, right? I mean, everything we sell, you can sell all day long, but if you don't create a clear expectation of what you're getting and what they're expecting, right? So that you minimize, somebody being upset over a product they thought they were going to get.
Right.
And I think it's something that we don't all do as well as we could or should, and I think the best of us get better at that. But it's just like a warranty. I mean, in our industry, warranties are very small; they're very short. 1-year warranties are pretty common in the paving industry.
Yeah.
Whether it's a 10-year expected payment or a 100-year expected payment, like a 1-year warranty. And so I'm very confident that and I've done this, when I'll sell a product at a parking lot that with a little longer warranty, But when I do that, I'll educate them on what to expect in that, year 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And if I can clarify that really well, basically that extra warranty created a better relationship with the customer, because now they understood that in year 2, here's what happens, here's how a pavement ages. In year 4, it drops down and it looks a little different, and here's what it looks like in year 4, and so on. So I just think that clarification of what the customer is going to be getting is important. And some people are afraid to do that, thinking that maybe they're going to lose a customer, or a customer expects more, right?
Right. No, I think that's a huge deal. And so I think too many people don't understand it's not about the price, it's about the service. In my eyes, I mean, you have to have both, but I had a mentor in Evergreen Lawns as I moved up, who was the president of the company, Rick Nast, who really, really kind of instilled in me. It's like, you can get whatever price you want to get. It's what are you going to do to ensure that you deliver that? And, as a young manager coming up and moving up rapidly, I would think that, hey, I'm doing a lot of production, I'm getting a lot of sales, I'm doing a great job. And he would ask for something else. I'm like, well, what do you want, this or that? And then I was explained very sternly that he wanted both. And, and you learn, it's like it's your expectations as an owner or as a manager or whatever the case may be, your expectations are realistic and you have realistic goals that are attainable yet aggressive, you can do really well. And so in that, I learned a lot in that stage of my career. Then I ended up with Triggering ChemLawn, and the difference at that point, as the acquisitions occurred, I was in Minneapolis and I was in charge of sales and marketing for Minneapolis with Minneapolis. So Evergreen Lawns was 40 million as a corporation. Minneapolis for Triggering ChemLawn was 20 million of lawn care and another 20 million of landscaping. So that's how big the market was for Triggering ChemLawn compared to Evergreen Lawns. So,
okay, wait. So what year did Evergreen sell that to Triggering?
I want to say 92. They sold the Barefoot Grass. I left. I did not want to work for Barefoot. So again, all these acquisitions were occurring. The big 4 companies at that time was TruGreen, ChemLawn, Barefoot, and Evergreen. Barefoot bought Evergreen, TruGreen bought ChemLawn, and then I went to TruGreen ChemLawn after I had to sit out for a year of a non-compete, and then I went to TruGreen ChemLawn in 93, and then TruGreen ChemLawn bought Barefoot, I want to say in 96 maybe.
And you were there in 93.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sure. I'm a friend of mine is a guy on the Chicago market, Bruce Church. If you remember, Church Landscaping was bought by TruGreen also, right?
I'm sure they were buying everybody.
That was probably right about that 95 or 6 as well.
Yep.
Okay. So you're at TruGreen. So if you were at Evergreen, let's say there are 40 million in revenues, then you went to TruGreen.
Mm-hmm.
They were how big were they at the time? They probably already rolled up a bunch of companies.
I mean, I would say, I don't know, 500, 600 million. I know that I want to say they hit $1 billion in 97, maybe 98, right in there, 97. They were doing $1 billion in lawn care.
A lot of chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
They also did mowing, and they also did like hardscapes and stuff too, right? For a bunch of
but they kind of started to really dive into that in the late 90s. Up until prior to that, it was pretty much all fertilizer and weed control. And then they started going towards the landscaping side of things in the I would say late 90s.
Mm-hmm. And when you look back, TruGreen now has continued to grow and acquire, haven't they, over the years? 25 years since then, right?
Yep. Yeah, TruGreen is definitely the biggest in the country, I would think. I'm not. A lot of the guys, obviously, I worked with are no longer there or have retired or whatever the case may be, but I still see them around. I had a facility that I built for them while I was a facility manager, and it's still running. So, it's it was at that time the 5th biggest facility they had in the country.
Where's that at?
In Burnsville, or Savage, Minnesota. Burnsville, Minnesota is right on the edge of Savage, in the Twin Cities. But it had Rochester, which is south of the cities, maybe 50 miles, and Mankato, which is southwest of the cities, another 30, 40 miles, had facilities there, plus the main facility. And so it was quite a large facility.
So how long were you on board with TruGreen then, Steve?
From 93 till the spring of 2000.
And then where'd you go?
That's when I started TruSeal.
And now tell me about the start of that. How that made you.
Well, that was interesting. So my brother worked for a large satellite broadcasting company, my younger brother, and they had been acquired. So he basically got a severance package, was out of work, and we started looking at businesses we could jump into, thinking that we were really smart and that we could do this. And so as we looked around, I wanted to stay in the service type of arena. And we started looking at the asphalt side of things because, quite frankly, it's a very fragmented industry. And secondly, the service is horrible. So if you called for a bid and you called 10 guys, maybe 2 would call you back. And so we're like, well, we'll call people back. And so
yeah, you're like, we could do that. We could do that.
Yeah. So we put together a plan, and what we did was we started. The reason it's TruSeal is that we're like, hey, we'll sell it back to TruGreen, and we'll start on the residential side of things. And so we went out and sold a ton of residential seal coat. And then I knew some things about asphalt, more about concrete from in my college days and that type of thing. But we needed mentors. And we approached Vance Brothers out of Kansas City. And that's
what's the name? Vance Brothers?
Yeah, Vance Brothers, which is a large seal coat provider. And also they do a lot.
Yeah, we know them.
Yeah. And so Tim Vance, who now is the president, I think he was probably the vice president back then, but I met with him. They were willing to train us. Obviously we would buy our product from them, but they were very receptive to it, and they actually helped us learn how to do seal coat correctly, application methods, mix methods, etc. Excuse me. So
what's your brother's name?
Pete.
So you and Pete are out here now. You're out there squeeging out this black gold, right? All over the driveways.
Yeah.
This area.
Yeah, we did quite well, but we didn't because we weren't planning enough for how we were going to get through the winter. So in lawn care, we always made so much money. What did I ever worry about winter? I never, ever once be part of a big company. Well, now you're on your own, and you go from a 6-figure income to a not 6-figure income. You figure out real fast that isn't quite what you banked on. And we made it through the winter by plowing some snow, and also I'm sure I borrowed some money from my dad to get us through. And then the next year we doubled in size as a seal coat company. And by year 3, we had tripled in size in the seal coat side of things, but we were also starting to do asphalt patching and concrete work. And we still weren't making hardly any money. And
we triple in size. We're at $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million in revenue.
We did our 3rd year, we did 1.2 million.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, that's great. We did 1.2 million. We didn't hardly make any money.
Yeah.
It was about year 5 that I figured out that we had trucks, we had nice building that we were in, et cetera, et cetera. And I took a philosophy from lawn care, which in lawn care, the goal was your facilities never wanted to run over 5% overhead in your management, buildings, et cetera, equipment. So I kind of applied that back to what we were doing, cut our overhead. And it was about year 5 when we started to go, hey, now we're making money. And I'm a big, don't take all the money and put it in your pocket. I'm a big, take the money and put it in your equipment and continue to grow internally and have the right people and the right equipment. And I'd rather spend a little bit more money on a good employee maybe than some other places do. But at the end of the day, they pay off in the long run as you continue to grow. So we went backwards in year 5 revenue wise, but made 3 times the profit by cutting expenses and figuring out how to run the business versus just keep throwing stuff on the wall and selling and that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Three times the profit is way better than three times your revenues.
Absolutely. And so it was kind of how my philosophy became as a smaller company, especially, it's like you either sell it or you produce it or you don't have a job. And that was, so either you're a really good salesman or you're really good in the production side of things, or we can't afford to have you. It's that simple. And obviously that's changed as years have progressed and you have to have admin and things like that. But so once we had our overhead in line, figured those things out, we were getting more and more requests for asphalt patching, more requests for concrete. And so we actually kind of pushed harder on the concrete side of things initially because we knew more about it, and we would patch out, and then people would talk to us for paving and that type of thing. And we would just refer off. We had some paving companies we worked with. They would give us their seal coat and crack fill. We would refer them the paving. But as we continued to grow, we started to get more into the commercial side of the industry. And, of course, you get the, hey, will you replace my parking lot for $100,000? And we're all like, oh, yeah, that'd be great money. But we don't have a clue how we're going to do that. So you would sub that out. But I felt like when I subbed it out, quite frankly, initially, the people I was working with, I didn't think they were doing it the way I wanted it done. I am a big do it right. If they have soft spots in clay, you dig them out. You don't just pave over them. You don't ignore it. And so I'm going to do it myself. I can't deal with these guys. So that's kind of how we did it. I have a friend, good friend of mine, who has been paving for his dad ran it. Now he runs it. That company's been in business 50 years. They're not a huge asphalt company, but they're extremely good at what they do. And he taught me a ton about how to pave. And that's where I learned a lot of my stuff.
What's the name of that company? Another kind of mentor company.
Valley Blacktop. And they're in Eagan, Minnesota.
Eagan?
Yeah.
And how big a company are they nowadays? Or
I guess they do a family run business. I guess they do $2.5 to $3.5 million a year of extremely good work. They're really good at what they do.
Yeah. So great quality company. Just focus on quality and their marketplace and don't sacrifice that for anything.
Right.
Awesome. And so, so they kind of mentored you, helped you as well.
Yep. Oh yeah. A ton. On the paving side of things, absolutely, what equipment, why this, that type of thing. I understand heights and elevations. I can run about any piece of equipment we have and that type of stuff. I'm pretty good at most of it. But on the paving end, I was just like, it's not only what mix, what equipment, densities, there's a lot to it, but it's also whys. Why do we do it this way? Why would you want to approach this that way? And I'm a big stay in your lanes. If you have some niches, make sure you take full advantage of those niches while we continue to grow on other sides of things. And so from the asphalt paving perspective, back then I had a Lee Boy 1000, and that's what I was paving with. And now I have 5 pavers at my shop and 2 down in our other facility. So
so Lee Boy 1000s, we used to run those. I think I still got 1 or 2 of those in our fleet of pavers, right? But what kind of pavers do you run today?
Mainly Weiler. I have the new 285 hybrid. I think I'm the only one in Minnesota or Iowa or anywhere that has one of the new ones. And then I've got the 385s, that type of thing. And then I've still got a couple.
We were one of the first to start buying Weilers back when they first started building them, because we knew the history of this of that family and what they've done in the world of boring machines and all the other things.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, so yeah, we saw what he built, the first ones he built, and saw they're a little heavier duty than the Leeboy 8500s.
Yeah.
Their screeds were better made. They weren't we call them throwaways, right? They weren't really
Right.
throwaways. You built
Right.
them. They're more like the CAD or Bull and Ox pavers that we used on bigger jobs.
Right.
It just made sense to invest in those, and sure enough, they've been great pavers. I think they're the
Yeah.
best in the market.
Yeah, they're outstanding. And being part of Caterpillar, their service, which again, for me is a big deal for any paving company, I assume it is, but if I have something go down, they come out and fix it. They come out and help, and I'm like, it's a short season. Something goes down, needs to get fixed. If it can get fixed on site, they'll do it. So, I mean, it's, I'm very happy with their paving equipment and that.
So let's say when did you get? So it's 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. You started paving. Is that about ready? Really?
I was paving in, I would say around 2010. We were paving.
2010. So at that point, you're paving driveways and parking lots.
Yeah, it was primarily driveways. We have while we were doing that on the concrete side of things, we had gotten very large. And we work a lot with Speedway gas stations.
Sure.
So we're their primary vendor in Minnesota for snow, for asphalt, for concrete. That referred us into, on the concrete side, we were pouring all the fuel facilities from the ground up, a great deal of them for Costco. And so we would do nothing interior, all their exterior, and on their fuel pads and their fuel facilities and the footings for the canopies, the whole 9 yards. So anyways, from that, we kind of started to learn the niches we wanted to be in and the niches we didn't. And we primarily took our education from concrete and applied it to asphalt as far as the sales and marketing. What we saw on the sales and marketing side of things is there's a lot of guys out there will say what they got to say to get the job, and I disagree with that. And they also give them whatever price they can just to get the job. And I don't understand that, but my philosophy is you have to make money. If you make money on the job by doing a good job, then it's a win-win. And so I always approach everything in our niches that it's a win. We want to make sure that the customer wins by quality product, telling them what they need to do. Again, doesn't mean that they will always do what you recommend, but telling them what they should do and then making sure that we do what we say we're going to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's good business is pretty simple, right? It's pretty black and white. I mean, deliver a great product, and hopefully, if you can deliver a product that's going to last longer, you can do it. If you can put it down faster, so you don't have to close down as long as somebody else would. You deliver a product that's going to last longer. You might be 10 or 15% more even, but the value is way more than that difference, right?
Absolutely.
The long-term value of the dollar that they spend with you is better. And some people weigh those things by past history, like I'm sure Speedway has with you. Mm-hmm. And then those customers that don't weigh those things, you probably not always a fit for you, right?
Right. And that's the thing. We've done Speedways since 2008. And I mean, they have 200 stores in Minnesota alone. It keeps us pretty busy. So, I mean, that is not our sole line of business, obviously, like anybody else. We're heavy on the HOA side of things. We do a tremendous amount of work in townhome associations. We're set up for that with the right equipment to do their streets, do their driveways, but I don't do the new construction side of it. I focus on the rip and replace, so to speak, coming in on their mandated times and doing what they need to do.
So anyways, I mean, we do a fair share of those as well. You got to be really good at communicating then. Not just one customer for that job, right? It's 100 customers.
Right. Oh yeah.
So it's an art. Please HOAs. You're not just pleasing that board, that leader of the board, the whole board. You're basically working for all, let's say 500, if it's 500 homeowners, all 500.
And they all have Google. so they can all come out and tell you what you did wrong. No matter what. Even if you had, as I explained to many homeowners, they're like, well, you should be doing this. I'm like, well, if I was in Texas, that would make sense, but this is Minnesota. So you Googled something for Texas, it doesn't really fit. And, but we did a project last year. It's probably one of our largest, which was about $1.5 million job, where we were, all the driveways, all the curb, all the streets. And we work with big curb companies for the curb. I don't want to play that game, but, phasing that project to allow people in and out of their associations and into their homes. And there was a lot of moving parts to that job, but it went extremely well. And, we have that niche. We're very good at it. We can get in and get out quickly and do a good job. And we're, I guess, in high demand because of it. So,
yeah, that's not an easy niche. So you'll find great success when you do that really, really well.
I think so.
So then, what other niches are you guys, are you going after? Well, let's go through this time frame still. Yeah, so 2008 or 9 or 10, whatever, when you started to do more paving of parking lots and all that, and you just continued to grow since then till 2000 through 2023, where you just did a little more every year, or where?
Yes, I mean, so it basically, concrete was our biggest division in 2010. Concrete was our biggest division. Seal coat and asphalt pavement were very similar in size. I want to say at that point we're probably doing, let's say we're doing $3.5 million a year, and now asphalt paving today is by far our biggest division, with multiple crews running and dirt crews, etc. And concrete's a consistent division, and seal coat's a consistent division. They always are right around the same numbers every year, but our massive growth has been completely in the paving. So last year in asphalt paving, I would say we did probably 6 million of our, that doesn't include Rochester, so it's actually more than that. It's about 8. So of our 13.5 million, about 8.5 was from asphalt.
Okay, so growing from that couple million a year in revenues, let's say, or let's say 3 million in revenues, 2008, 9, 10, something like that, to 4 times the size or more than 4 times the size. What have you been experiencing as far as growth? Have you been able to consistently make a similar, net profit, gross profit, whatever you measure by, but EBITDA, whether it's net profit, have you been able to hold it pretty strong through this whole time?
Yes and no. So every time it seems that you kind of try and go for that growth spurt, that you hit a growth spurt, you'll usually drop some profitability, and then you catch it back up the following year, is what I've seen. So as you figure out how to handle the volume of work you're suddenly getting, it usually costs you money, then you gain that back. I would say, surprisingly, and maybe not for a lot of people, I think COVID year and years after that were relatively profitable. Last year, with the cost of everything climbing, not only is your labor rates climbing, but your parts, your everything, our profitability wasn't as good last year as it had been the year before. So we'll adjust for that, which we've already done in our pricing for this year and that type of thing. And then we'll. Yeah, I mean,
it's Steve, it's tough, right? Keeping up with we all try to have escalation, in our contract. But boy, it's really tough when you have everything kind of going up. You don't have escalations for everything. You got escalation the top 2 or 3 things. Let's say, liquid asphalt or asphalt, cement or cement cost of a yard of ready mix, and maybe fuel, right?
Right.
But you don't have all those other little things that come about, right? That are part of inflation. You don't keep up. I mean, your labor costs goes up because when everybody else's cost of living goes up, what do you want to do for your teammates? You want to compensate them and give them raises to cover the increases. And in the last couple of years, it's been ridiculous as far as, the inflation, what that costs all, including our teammates, right?
Right. And that's the thing. If you want good people, you got to take care of your people. And yeah, you figure out real fast. So it's like, wow, this part costs $20, now it costs 60. And if you're getting hit with that over and over again, I looked at the repairs of my equipment last year and it almost doubled in cost. And I'm like, I didn't fix that much more stuff. It's just the cost of repairing that equipment. And so, you can't plan for all of that. And so now you plan for it this year and hope that it kind of steadies out and make sure that you gain it back.
Yeah, you can't plan for a crazy man at the helm of our country, right?
Yeah.
Our,
Not a fan.
our oil and everything else, right? Because the stupid things this administration's done right off the bat, right? To ruin our, we were really self sufficient when it came to our oil, and our cost of fuel, of course, was at all time lows when you look at the over time, all time lows. And then he says, you know what, we don't need to be producing this, and we don't need to challenge the environmentalists, right? So we're going to buy from Russia. We're going to buy from all these other places that actually, bottom line, by the way, are way dirtier burners than we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what people, you and I realize, and business owners realize, is that costs us all, because everything we get, whether it's in our kitchen table or it's delivered to our offices, all gets delivered by vehicles that burn fuel. Right. And if you got electric vehicles, guess what? They burn on coal, right?
Right.
All that cost went up along with everything else, because they're shutting down our coal plants at the same time. So either way, all these stupid maneuvers that have caused inflation that should not have been there even, right? But unfortunately, we as business leaders need to get engaged to understand what's going on around us, so we can talk to our teammates and talk to our friends about who to vote for next time. If whether we ever voted in our lives, we're Republican, we're independent, it doesn't matter. When people do stupid stuff like that, as business leaders, we have to stand up strong and say, let's not let this happen again, right?
My crews are well aware of what we where we stand with that type of thing. We're like, guys, and so Minnesota is an extremely left state, and which kind of blows my mind. Again, it's just like anything else. Certain parts of the state elect the government officials, but our taxes are high, everything's high. And it's the same thing. Oh, we want electric vehicles by this time. And I'm like, you're insane. This makes no sense financially or any other way. If you want to do hybrids, go for it. But to go full electric, and now you're seeing the repercussions. I'm like, how are you get up here? It's been a very mild winter this year, but in a normal winter up here, you have an electric car and it dies and you're out in the middle of nowhere. That'd be an interesting deal. So
we're seeing the same thing, right? I'm in Florida 7 months a year nowadays, but I'm still in Illinois for the other 4 or 5 months. And, my family's there, my businesses are there in Illinois, and it's crazy how people that don't understand economics and business are leading our states, and our states, our counties, in our country. So.
Oh, absolutely.
The goal is we have to create more awareness for people to understand the damage they do, so that we elect the right better people next time.
Right.
So when you look at your teammates today, so you started out with just a couple of you and your brother and probably some part timers, I'm guessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now how many teammates do you have now on your team? Full time. Let's say full time, part time.
Full-time and part-time, we run close to 50. And then we have a second facility that usually is around 18 to 20. And the second facility is M&M Construction Asphalt down in Rochester, Minnesota. So it's under that is a company we purchased a couple of years ago. And my son actually runs that company or that division for us. So
your son's passionate about this dirty business too?
Oh yeah. Honestly, my brother said more than one. We're very passionate about hunting as well. And I'm a big bow hunter and that type of thing. He's like, why don't you just take all that work and effort and go do a hunting television show or something? And I'm like, yeah, probably a little bit more fun, but I'm very passionate, not just about asphalt, but about growing good teams and developing people My foremen were not foremen 10 years ago, but they're foremen now. And to watch them grow each year, this is our plan for this year. So I'd like to see you accomplish, and they've been able to accomplish a lot of that, is that I enjoy more than anything. And I enjoy building something that, stands for, we're well known for doing very good work, for being on time, for responding, calling people back when they call, that type of thing. And so we've built that brand, and now we've started to acquire some smaller companies and that type of thing. And the reason my son is in running a smaller facility is that you can't come and run the big facility so that I can retire until you can run the small one. So
Like it. So M&M was, you bought them just recently?
yeah.
Just a couple.
Yep.
And they were a paving company, or what were they?
Yeah.
Seal coating paving?
They're seal coating paving, some very small amount of concrete.
Now, and what size were they when they bought them? When you bought them, and what size?
They were about, I think I want to say they did like 1.4 million when we bought them, and last year they did 2.6. They should do.
Right.
We should be able to get them up over 3 this year.
And what's your son's name?
Kyle.
So Kyle's doing well, figuring it out.
Kyle's a extremely smart kid. He's a combat veteran, so he's been hurt in combat and had to kind of work through some of that. And but he's very smart and very aggressive. They kind of teach that. But he's always been that way, but he's very good salesman and very intelligent. He understands what we're trying to do with the quality of work and that type of thing, and building teams. And he's been part of some very elite teams in the military. And so he tries to take that mentality to his team.
That's awesome. Yeah. If you can have that mindset to train elite players on your team to accomplish the goal, right? To be the best you can be, you'll get there. I mean,
right.
If that's your goal, and you state that goal consistently, your core values pretty much shape that vision, those goals, you'll get there, right?
Right.
That's pretty. And okay, so when you got you guys do much like retail, industrial, that kind of stuff. So you do a little bit of that as well.
Yep. Oh yeah. We do a little bit of everything.
So when you look at TruSeal today, all right, and will you rename M&M eventually, or no?
I would guess at some point, but Rochester's so the Mayo Clinic is in Rochester, Minnesota. So it's a big town, small town. There's only 150,000 people there, but it's still a small town atmosphere. And so that's why we didn't rename, because they already knew who this company was. And so if there's a reason to, yeah. If not, I mean, as long as the brand is good and it does what we want it to do as far as success wise, as far as quality of work wise, then we may never rename it.
Right. And when you look at the whole, let's say TruSeal, Minneapolis area, you're 13, you're at 13, and this one you're 2.6, is that right? So about 15 million or so in revenue. So,
yep.
So you're doing smaller numbers when you're 20 people in Rochester, they're doing smaller. Out you're smaller, right?
Right. A lot more residential in Rochester. The average price of the residential driveway down there is much larger. There's a lot of it's bigger driveways, that type of thing, but there's definitely more residential done down there than I literally, for paving, might do 5 residential driveways a year that I consider pure residential. I just don't want to take them on.
So Steve, when you look at how you inspire your team to get to where they've got so far, and how you're going to inspire them to get to the next level, to get to twice the size you are today in both locations, right? Do you look at do you talk about the top line revenues? You talk about goals of EBITDA or profitability, or how do you inspire your team, your leaders especially to go after that moonshot, right? The leaders and the crew are
if I go walking around saying how much money I want to make next year to the crew, that doesn't always inspire them, because unless they're getting a chunk of it, they don't care in my eyes. And in talking to them, I'm close to us. I've got guys who've been with me for 20 years. So I that are on the crews. So I know just from talking to them what gets them going, that type of thing. So based on that was my foreman, and its opportunity, its continued growth, its continued earnings, based on the fact that we have to obtain this revenue, this profitability. With my crew, it's about pride of work, and that they're well known for doing excellent work. And when they do excellent work, they are rewarded accordingly, which is we get jobs done on time and do it correctly. That's how they get paid better. That's how they earn bonus. That's how they get to go forward.
Right. And then your foreman, or let's say your top few people that that really are pushing to make sure you're profitable, pushing to make sure the quality's there. You're not redoing work. You're not wasting money so that you're profitable. How do you inspire them?
Basically through educating them on, there's a couple things, but it's educating them first on what's expected and what we think is good, where we're trying to go, how does that benefit them if we go there as far as growth, et cetera. And secondly, some of the things we've done, we used to just do an annual bonus at the end of the year, that type of thing. Now we do that, but we also have done monthly bonuses during the season for our foremen based on profitability, productivity, organization of their crew, that their paperwork's done correctly and in on time, all the things that our admin people need, so that I can know that we're going where we need to go.
So like profitability, efficiency, quality, these are things you're able to measure.
Right. Measurable goals that they have a chance to attain. If I'm a big guy about, these are your goals, but I want to make sure they're, back in my lawn care days, part of the reason I got out of lawn care was that even though I was in Minnesota, my bosses at Tjornhom expected me to do the same thing that they were doing in Kansas City. And I was like, you're giving me goals that do not match the season that I work with it. And I got tired of that. I was like, these are goals that are not obtainable.
Right.
I'm hitting my goals. I'm hitting my budget, yet you're trying to get me to do extra because Kansas City maybe isn't doing that. They're not hitting their goals. So I have to pick up the slack. That's great. But at the end of the day, it's not obtainable. So now you're just riding me for something that I know better than that we can hit. So with my people, I'm like, I want goals that we can hit. Now they're not easy goals. They got to push, but we need their goals they know they can get done.
Right.
So
attainable goals.
Yeah.
And okay, so so for us, I was fairly similar to the way you're managing your teammates. I went to probably 10 years ago, and anybody that wanted to know, we kind of opened up the book to them. Anybody that doesn't care to know, that's okay. But if they're leading a business, we're going to tell you, what creates success in our businesses, and then how you're going to be rewarded on that, on the success. And we went to pretty much enterprise value more than anything else. So we said, what's the enterprise value of the business that you're running or you're in? And then how do you grow that enterprise value?
Right.
And then, as the EBITDA, net profit, and however you want to look at that, right? There's multiples of that, industry standard multiples of that create the enterprise value. And that those are, and they flex depending on, is it maintenance work, which is worth more than new construction? Is it municipal work, which is similar to construction, right? You're going after maintenance work, better value than new construction.
Right.
So there's a multiplier that if you looked it up, you can see about how it bounces around on an annual basis. But when we look at this, we say, okay, we're just gonna use a common number of, let's say, 4 times multiple or 5 times multiple of EBITDA or net profit. Depending, we have 14 businesses, and so depending on the business, right, we're using that, and then we incentivize our leaders to increase that that enterprise value. And again, some are our businesses, like we're in technology and a couple of businesses outside of, paving is mostly what we do, but we have a technology company that's growing. The revenues of that company are based on the value of that, the enterprise value is based on the revenues, right? Whereas the value of our paving businesses are based on a multiple of the profit or the EBITDA, whichever way you go, right? And we know what that is, and we incentivize people on growing that. And so now we've had more and more people step up to really take more control for us on a daily basis of that bottom line. Whatever the bottom line is, are we growing quality customers if they're sales, or aren't you? Right. Our sales teams have no problem now saying no, we don't do that work because it doesn't increase the value of the business by doing it for general contractors that pay pay like crap and try to chisel you down before you get the job and after the job is done and 6 months later when you're trying to collect your last 10%, still trying to chisel you, right? So those customers don't provide a lot of value when it comes to enterprise value. So my team has got no problem saying no to those customers, right? So I think it's important to constantly watch that, right?
I agree.
Yeah. So when you look at where you want to be in, let's say, 5 years, what are your thoughts? Is TruSeal still a business that you someday want to roll it out to like a True Grain or something like that, or is TruSeal a business that you want to be a legacy business for your son and family to operate? Pete's family, or what does that look like?
I'll never say never. As far, if the right offer came along, I suppose we'd always look at that. But our goal has always been to that it would be a legacy business. Pete has 2 sons that are just in high school right now. And then my son works for me. My daughter is one of our top salespeople in our Ever Grove office. And so as that's progressed, I've kind of looked at it as being a legacy business. But again, if you can't ever say that you would sell your business, business is business, I guess. If you sold for the right price, I guess you could always start one in another state and go send your kids, tell them to go down here and go to Iowa and do it, So, but right now that's kind of been our plan, is that it would be a legacy type business. Yeah.
So I've got a bunch of family members, including my son and daughter, my 2 oldest of my 4. Are both of my businesses running businesses for us, and I have other family members too. So for me, it's kind of the same thing. I would say that we're not going to be looked upon as a paving as much as paving is our biggest biggest revenues, and we're never going to be known as the Rabine the paving people. I want to be known as Rabine, a kind of a family office of businesses that focus on facility services and that will continue to grow in that space. And so we have sold I've sold a couple of businesses over the years. So we've partnered with private equities on another one, and so we're not opposed to selling or partnering with somebody that can take us to another direction.
Right.
As long as it's good for the stockholders, as long as it's good for the teammates and the growth in the future, we're all we're all ears, right?
Right.
So for me, we're never going to promise never to sell, but we're never going to sell. In my opinion, if we thinking we have to sell.
Right.
And so, we're in a position. So we're always in a position of, if the right opportunity comes along because it's right for all of us, then great. If it's not, that's okay too, right?
Well, and that's kind of the whole thing, is that I run my business and I'm not going to sell it. I run my business. I mean, we plow a lot of snow, but I run my business not to plow snow. So that anything so this winter, we've hardly plowed snow at all. It's been so warm up here. But that's okay, because we don't count on snow. Last year we plowed millions in snow, so I mean, it just depends on the year, what's called, but you don't want to count on it. So you run your business based on, these are your core businesses, and that's how we operate.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And never have to have anything and never have to sell anything. Right.
Right.
never, be in a position where you have to buy something, a
Right.
business, a car, whatever it is, right? A house, right?
Mhm.
And never be in a position where you have to sell something, right?
Right. Right.
It's-
I mean,
It's bad. It's a, business 101 is, buy because it's a great buy and sell because it's a great sell, right?
right. And that's kind of the whole thing is I just want to run, I've enjoyed running the business. We've grown, and we probably could have grown faster if I wanted to do some different things, but I'm probably more conservative on that side where I want to learn to do it very well, do it right. Now we'll grow it again. And now we'll grow it again. Now we'll go to this market or we'll push to that.
So yeah. So in our industry, we look at these things as growing enterprise value. Our industry show us that the average EBITDA is about 6 or 7% in a business like ours, right?
Yep.
But when I look at that, that's from the poorest run companies to the best run companies, right?
Yep.
So that's an average, and so what's the right percentage for blue chip companies? We are a blue chip company. We're striving to be world class at everything we do.
Yep.
I believe your profits should be better than the average, of course, if that's who you are, right?
Right.
What you guys have any goals of EBITDA or net profit that you put out there for your let's say your son, you, Peter?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have net profit goals is always discussed. And so again, from a tax standpoint, sometimes your net profit, you don't want it to be a certain thing, but again, we want to be in a position where our goal is to have a net profit of 15 to 20% at the end of the year. And, depending on the line, so to speak, and the line of business, Seal Coat's net profit should be higher than concrete. Asphalt paving, if we're doing the right projects, can be extremely profitable. And so we want to be to a point where, let's say we're going to be around 15% net. Now we may decide we want that to be 8%, and we will, whether it's buying equipment or whatever the case may be that year, to push us up or down. But we want to have, again, it's no different than having to sell a business or not having to sell a business, making sure you make this much profit so you can reinvest it into this or buy a new pavers or whatever the case may be. I want to be headed for a certain number.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that's the key to that. You kind of mentioned this, right? Every industry, there's kind of different averages and there's different profits that you can attain if you are blue chip, service compared to an average service in your space, right?
Right.
And so, but as you and I both know, those businesses that tend to be lower revenues businesses that are more, they're higher touch businesses and they're smaller revenues, profit margins are usually a little better, right?
Right.
You understand there's more overhead to those, but if you do those right, the net profits should be expected to be better in those smaller revenues businesses. Then you get to the bigger revenues business where so many people are competing to get those big jobs that like those winning are happy to make it a few percent with high revenues, high risk and low reward, right? In my opinion. So you tend to, look at those and say, oh gosh, there's a big job. We can go to this big job, and your teammates want that big job. Your sales team, they want that big job, right? But the risk very often, because so many people want that big job,
right,
are much higher, and the dollars are much higher. So that job could put you out of business or ruin your whole year, right? So again, I look at our, the businesses are kind of like you have this main business like we have, and then you have these areas of niches and expertise you have. Some are high volume, let's say high price jobs, or averaging the price of a couple $100,000 a job, and they're not bad. And then some are low, but you got enough of them, you can do a lot of them for higher margin.
Right.
So it's like you say the balance, if you're going for 15% or so net, the balance is you're going to have some jobs might be 20 or 25, and some jobs are going to be 5 or 10.
Right.
That depends on the niche you're going for, but that mix is important to have so that you have some diversity in the type of customers you serve. You got to be careful sometimes that you don't go outside that niche too much, right?
Well, I've seen us go outside that niche and usually got our butts kicked the first time we did. So it does affect your net. I mean, whether it was on the concrete or asphalt side, some of the jobs we've done, when you first step into them, it's like, well, that was probably, as you said, oh, that's really going to be good money. No, it wasn't. And then when you get done with the learning curve and realizing the speed of what you had to go, I mean, I walk away from jobs like that all the time now, where my reps come to me and, oh yeah, I really want this job. Well, I'm like, I'm sorry, we're not going to bid it. I'm like, I said, look at page 2, all the requirements they have on this. I go, you're going to be running around, screwing around with this, and it's a freaking parking lot. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I can go, for the amount of time it would take me to do this, I could have paved 2 townhome associations for $250,000 each. So why would I do this?
As we get to be a little wiser, we realize that saying no is more important than saying yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's something that I was not good at for a long time.
No, neither was I. We all go through the stress of going, whoops.
Okay, so what type of core values do you guys have? You guys have core values that you guys live by, or just kind of a expected values?
So what I preach, I mean, there's certain things that I preach, which I guess you can say are core values, and it starts with I expect at the sales process first, before we ever set foot in the field to do the work, is that you tell them the truth, you tell them what they need, and make recommendations based on that. If they choose not to do that, that's the customer's choice, but we will tell them what we think is the right thing to do. And I am not you have to be honest, and that is number one. Number two for me is, and again, before we even got to the field side of things with my inside or sales reps, that type of thing, is responsiveness is of paramount importance. You will call people back. If there's a problem, we will go out and deal with it. If they're pissed and they need to talk to me, if it's gotten that far, so be it. Let me know. Do not be afraid to bring a problem to the table so that we resolve the problem. We need to always be responsive and resolve issues, as well as, it's great when they call and say we did a great job. That's the easy call. It's dealing with the hard call. And those are, from a sales standpoint, those are like number one and number two. And I just do not want anybody going out there telling them what we can't. It's something I don't want them to go tell them we can do something that we can't. And I want them to be responsive. When we go to the production side of thing, our core values are do it right. Number one. I mean, we have our set pieces of things as far as maintaining equipment, with our crews on jobs when they come in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But my big thing with the crew is, first up, do your job. Don't worry about what the other guy's doing. Do your job. And secondly, you're a team, and the team needs to do it right. So if we go and pave 100 driveways and 20 of them have big curves on the sides because whoever was tamping the sides of the driveways did a half-assed job, as a team, if you walk by that, you're no better than the guy who did it. So don't go tell me who did a bad job. I can't stand that. Well, this guy screwed up. I'm like, everybody makes mistakes. It's what did you learn from the mistake? Don't keep making the mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. Learn from it and tell us about it so we can fix it. And so,
not just that, but don't let somebody else make a mistake on your crew. That's
right.
part of your team. It makes the whole team look bad.
And as we train foremen, as they come up, that's the funniest part, because with the foreman, they're always like, well, he did do, I'm like, who runs the crew? So you can tell me that this guy screwed up, and that's all well and good, but what did you do about it? I yelled at him. Well, that's not what I want, because that doesn't solve the problem. We don't learn from that. What we learn from is how to fix the problem so he doesn't do it again. And so as a foreman, become better at that. It doesn't mean that, you've been on a paving crew. When it's 100 degrees, the boys get a little mouthy. But at the same time, it's not about that. It's about do it right and treat people so that they can learn, not so that they're just getting yelled at. That does no good. I've let a couple foremen go over the years because of that exact reason. It's like, you're a screamer, I don't want you on my crew.
Don't need it.
So my core values are really, it's about doing it right from A to Z, do it right. Doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. Doesn't mean that we don't have a problem. But if we do make a mistake, I know as a company, we'll come back. And I definitely know there's companies up here that don't. And we'll always come back and try and rectify the problem.
Well, in my experience, I believe when you do make a mistake, if you recognize it before the customer recognizes it, you fix it, or you make them aware that you're fixing it. The relationship grows stronger, not weaker. It's owning those mistakes is the most important thing. So whether it's that new labor on the crew or that veteran operator on the crew that makes a mistake, hopefully they're raising their hand right away because that's your culture. And when you raise your hand, hey, hopefully that you as the owner or whoever it is in charge of that account is reaching out to that customer faster than they find it, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes you're not going to see a mistake. It happens after, a month later, something happens with the pavement or the soils below the pavement. Then it's a matter of just like you said, addressing it fast. So I love the responsiveness is key to success for sure. So
absolutely.
Good stuff. So hey, Chris, what do you got, buddy? So Chris is going to chime in here. Chris, what do you got? Any questions? And tell us anything you've learned here.
Oh, it's great. Thank you, Steve, for taking the time, man.
Oh yeah.
You guys really got deep in there, man. I love it. I have a question. You mentioned working with Speedway and Costco. Those are obviously very well-known brands. Can you talk about how you got those relationships and developed them into such?
Interesting. So with Speedway, which is how we got involved with Costco, was through Speedway. With Speedway, we started out, they had some issues. They had a vendor that was doing their asphalt. And at that point, whoever was doing it, that was, like 2008, they were shortcutting a lot of what the work they were doing. And we got referred to their head of maintenance in town here. I don't even know who referred us, but they called us and had us come out and do some work for them. And in our discussions, he was like, well, why are you doing it this way? I'm like, well, this is how you're supposed to patch asphalt. This is why we would address these issues a certain way and that type of thing. Well, that turned from getting a call for one store to 10 stores to by 2009, probably 2010, we were their only vendor in Minnesota for asphalt concrete. And it started from doing it correctly. And then what happened is they knew we plowed snow and they had an issue with their snow vendor. And they asked us to pick up some stores, which by the time snow comes, we all have our contracts done, but we were able to figure out a way to pick up 30 of their stores and plow them for them because the vendor had a problem where he was out of the picture. So all of a sudden, so we took that. Well, then it went from 30 stores it went to 50 stores and it went to 100 stores. And again, it was because we're very responsive and did a very good job with the snow. It continued to open doors for the concrete and asphalt. And they referred us to Costco for the fuel facilities because we were working on fuel stations all the time. They referred us to one of the engineers for Costco, and Costco has engineering companies that do all their bidding and come out and run their projects and that type of thing. And Jones Covey out of California is who was doing it. And so we got referred to them, and then we did Fargo, North Dakota for them. So again, one of those projects where you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. We're gonna make all this money. Oh yeah, this is 4 hours away and we're not making near what we thought, but we learned how to do their projects from that job. And then we did Rochester, Minnesota. We did a ton of them in the Twin Cities area. And that's how we got that. So
cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Now, one more question I got. So how did you understand that? Well, I guess maybe through TruGreen. Tell me how you looked at the acquisition of M&M, and how you looked at that, how you valued it, a little bit about how that worked out. Because
a lot of it was from lawn care. because we had bought a lot of companies in lawn care. So I had the opportunity to be involved in those acquisitions. So when I looked at M&M and the people who ran it, they were doing a nice job, but the owner, how he even came up for sale is the owner had cancer and he wanted to get out of the industry, to get out of the stress of the industry. So I don't think he would have really sold if that wasn't the case. But we had been involved in a much larger acquisition, and the day we were supposed to sign that acquisition, that owner backed out and sold it to somebody else. And so it was kind of a big deal. But I had learned a lot about valuing asphalt companies from looking at a much larger acquisition. So when I went down to Rochester, the first thing I was looking at is that they're not that far away from our facility. So they're 55 minutes away. And I live in between the two facilities in a smaller town in between the two facilities. So it's easy for me to go either way. So what we looked at is not only was there an opportunity to acquire companies. So again, we looked at equipment, we looked at their EBITDA, we look at their any long-term customers. So some asphalt companies have them, some don't. And that's how we work through the evaluation. Based on that, their revenues, their profitability. I mean, there obviously is a whole pile of stuff that you're looking at in that. And then we also knew that for us, we are usually so busy, it's not hard for us to sub some of our work to that facility in the South Metro, the Twin Cities, because it's a 50-minute drive and they can be up here up in the cities paving, which allows us to get more projects done as well. So it's a win-win. And we wanted to ensure that we kept their staff. Their foreman is outstanding and their admin is outstanding. So in this type of game today, key people are so important that have the knowledge.
Yeah.
And
What was the multiple EBITDA on a business that size that you paid, or you would look at as a target to pay?
So the target that I have seen with EBITDA is 6 to 8 times is what I'm seeing out there right now, or hearing is out there right now. Don't know if that's the case, but what we looked at was 4 for us. So
yeah. So I look at, for businesses that size, 3, 4, is probably more like it.
yeah,
Businesses that are maybe your size might be more like 5, 6, what I'm seeing.
yeah,
Depends on the quality of the customers, right?
right.
Quality of the team, all those things. So, but yeah, interesting. Cool. What else you got, Chris? What other question you got for Steve?
Yeah, I got some amazing takeaways.
Share some of the takeaways with us.
Yeah. No, I got one more question. So Steve, it seems like, your experience with TruGreen and Evergreen was very impactful. Your name is even akin to TruGreen, TruSeal. What did you learn from working with those companies that helped TruSeal become successful?
A lot. I mean, there's a ton that I learned there. So because TruSeal started out as a residential seal coat company, and Evergreen and TruGreen, the lion's share of their business was still residential. And so there was all kinds of ways to market to a residential customer that we did, that if I had not been involved with that, would never have happened. And so first thing was we had to learn how to sell it. And again, train some other salesmen, because on the residential side, you need more salespeople to get that kind of revenue. And so we had to learn about it. And then we used the same sales tools that we had used in lawn care to sell seal coat. And still use the phone a ton. We'd have to, again, in lawn care, we had measurements on like every lawn in the Twin Cities by that point, but not driveways. So we had to go out, and we would go out and walk up and down the street and put a door hanger on each door. As we looked at the driveway, we'd have to write down the address, the dollar amount we thought we'd charge for the driveway, then we'd leave a flyer on the door for them. And the do not telemarketing things were starting up at that point. So we couldn't just call them up and sell them like they were doing in lawn care for 20 years. You had to literally hope they would call you back. So then we figured out if we left the flyer and then put the price on it, they'd call us back much more frequently, but we had the price. And so that's how we kind of started selling. And I mean, we still seal code some of those driveways today that we did back in 2000. It's just at this point, they probably had a new driveway down or whatever the case may be, and then we seal them. But yeah, so that was the first thing. Second thing was, because I had run multiple facilities, is I understood income statements, I understood balance sheets, I understood profit and loss. And so I didn't know labor rates should be for certain things in the asphalt world, so to speak, but I understood that we had to do this X, Y, and Z, and we had budgets in place so that we could figure out how to make money. Because you need to understand how to make money, and then you need to understand not to take the non-profitable. I mean, I see companies do it all the time. Wow, this guy's going to give me $1,000 and I'm going to go do this. And I'm like, you're going to lose your ass on that job. You know, you don't understand. It's not about that. It's not about dollars, because guys will take jobs when they start out, and they'll take jobs because they want to pay their bills. But they have to understand that it's Minnesota, for instance, up here. You're not just paying your bills for the summer. You better make enough money to pay your bills in the winter. And so tremendous amount of education on understanding how to understand income statements and that type of thing came from my lawn care background. And it was seasonal. The difference was, like I said, it was seasonal lawn care, but I made so much money in my facilities that, well, who cared? You know, I mean, we just kept business as usual. I never had to worry about that. Well, when you start to get on your own, all of a sudden you care a whole lot, because you're like, I don't have enough money to get through the winter. I had to borrow money from my parents. I was able to pay them all back, obviously, at some point, you know, but that was kind of hard to go to my dad and ask for money when I was 35 years old, you know. So yeah.
Interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Takeaways, Christopher.
It's some killer takeaways. So always get beer for your coworkers, because they might be the owner.
Right?
Long hours can lead to high turnover, so treat your people well. It's not about price, it's about the service. If you get a request for a bid, call them back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that will be better.
Yeah.
By doing a good job, it's a win-win. That's literally how you got the relationship with Speedway and Costco. Include escalations in your contract. Be passionate about growing your people. Saying no is far more important than saying yes. And do your job and do it right. Steve, where can our audience find out more about you and TruSeal?
Well, you can certainly go to our website, www.trusealamerica.com, and about me, I guess LinkedIn. I'm not out there everywhere. I'm not like Gary. I mean, I was down in San Antonio standing with your crew a couple of weeks ago. So,
Really?
Oh yeah, I was down there, and they were all standing there talking about how great you were. So,
No.
no, they were. They had some good things to say about you. I was just standing next to them, and they were talking amongst each other. So,
That's a good thing.
yeah, it wasn't a bad thing.
No, we're all over the place. Texas is a good growth market for us. And Minneapolis is a great place too. I mean, Minneapolis area is a great place. Hopefully, like Chicagoland area, turns around, because I think our business will be affected in the future if they don't change their ways. Right?
Yeah.
Continue to think debt is no big deal for these big municipalities. Eventually, businesses will leave because they can't be taxed as much as they want to tax. Right?
No, I mean, that's the thing. I always say, I always watch the municipality work and everything, and I'm like, well, what do they care? It's not their money, right? You know, they don't care what they spend, and I'm just saying it's not a good way to run anything.
Well, keep educating your team up there and everybody around you, because they know what type of hard work you're about, and I think you get respect from people around you when you've built what you've built, and you continue to work so hard. So
I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on our show today, brother. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work.
Okay.
And, we're in the same fun, dirty business. And if I can ever help you out, I'm here for it. Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Until next time, thanks for listening to DDCEO and our friend Steve today. And let's keep moving forward.
All right. Yes, sir. You guys take care.